Hi, and welcome everybody to my NFL Free Pick show on our YouTube channel here. As always, on a Thursday, and it is Thursday, September 23rd. By the way, I'm joined by Doc Sports handicapper, Mr. Doug Upstone, who I think personally, I'm a little bit biased, but I think he's the most underappreciated and best handicapper that nobody knows about sometimes. So, Doug, how are you, my friend?
Well, Russ, I'm very well, thank you, and thanks for the kind words. The Much of that, to be perfectly honest, has been intentional. I never have seeked a high profile for any number of different reasons. I did step out in joining Doc, so that has certainly changed my profile in that regard. And so far, fingers crossed, knocking on wood, whatever you want to do, it's going quite well. So, but by the same token, I'm also though spending more time handicapping. Before I was doing, as you know, a lot of writing at various locations and stuff like that. So not to say the handicapping wasn't important, but there was just less time in your average day. Now I'm still writing, just not as much.
Yeah, it's tough wearing all those hats, when you're working on your own. And I could appreciate where you're coming from. So, because for years I was doing a lot of writing myself, and it takes away from your research time. And if you're working on your own and got nobody helping you, people don't realize the research that we put into making our picks. It might take us all of 10 minutes to write 4 picks up, but it probably took us a couple of days to do all the research on every game to come up with those 4 picks and then decide. You get it's almost like being in an NFL draft room where you have your board, okay? Right. And they have all their players and the players that they show are not necessarily of need, but what they consider to be the best top to bottom. And it's the same thing when we come up with our weekly NFL and college football picks. Again, we talked about this in terms of our free picks, Doug, and we come up with a board. And by Thursday or so, we usually have that board where we have our top 5 or top 3. And then as in accordance, if it's a 4 or 5, we're using it as a free pick on one of these videos. So, yeah, I mean, people just don't realize the time and effort that we put in. They think we're just throwing darts up against the wall. Now there are guys that do that, right, Doug? And just concentrate on the point of sale, getting you on the phone and telling you what you want to hear. But these are 2 guys that don't do that. Doug, what's your thoughts on what we've seen in the NFL so far? Or do you have any key handicapping points you'd like to bring up to the viewers?
Sure. Well, one that's out there, it has been out there for years, and is still, let's just say, considered relevant. But I guess my point is, it no longer is. And this used to be a big deal, which was to follow West Coast teams that went east, and particularly on the East Coast, and which they then, had the time change of 3 hours. They had the travel, and they had the early game. So the always was, they were on 10 o'clock body time, 10 o'clock a.m., I should say. So they're always the case. Well, and for a number of years, including the years that you and I handicapped, that was relevant, okay, for a number of years. But as everything with trends or with angles, over time, okay, they start to dissipate. And some people are aware of those types of things dissipating, others are not. And, you had brought up like media people, for example, that would be an example of something that a media person would bring up, because they'd heard it. Okay. Now, did they know anything about it other than hearing it? No, they heard it. They heard a number. But, and this is a very small sample, but over the last several years, for me anyways, the numbers that I've been following is that, it's turned into basically just a 500 deal. And this year, granted, we're 2 weeks in, if you had played on the East Coast teams, you'd be 0-3 right now. Okay, in those situations. Now you could make the case there are some other ones like Indianapolis technically fits, but I did not include that because the travel part of it is not nearly as far, going to Indiana all the way to the East Coast. Right. So I'm going to take those out from that standpoint. But the basic point is, Ross, you know what? Teams figured this out. After all these West Coast teams went east for all those years and they didn't cover and they didn't win, they got to do something different. So they did. Okay. So they adjusted their practice schedules. They do all these other different elements, that come into play. So that's at this point, it's a myth. Okay. That's still true. Okay. And instead, you know what? Know it, realize it, and move on from there. Okay. And make yourself better picks.
I know one team that's done, I'm pretty sure has done very well when they come to the East Coast and the West Coast has been the Seattle Seahawks. As a matter of fact, last week, they went to Indianapolis a couple weeks ago and won. But again, you brought up the point that that's really not a true West Coast, East Coast game. And I agree with you, Doug. It's a big deal going especially from the Pacific Northwest all the way to the East Coast. And Pete Carroll's teams, for whatever reason, have thrived in that situation in recent seasons. And one of the things I heard the teams have changed, not all of them, but a lot of them, is when they have to travel from the West Coast to the East Coast, a true West Coast to East Coast, as Doug touched upon, they're leaving on Friday night instead of Saturday morning. So it gets them more accustomed to the time change. I don't know how much you could really adjust in that short period of time. I would say that it would help you at least a little bit more than if you left on a Saturday. So, in any event, good point, Doug, and something everybody should keep an eye on. And Doug's right. I mean, the media sometimes they hear things through the grapevine and they preach them like gospel, and there's no substantiation when it comes to sports betting that could support what they're saying. So just be careful of that. Anyway, Doug, you have a free pick. Easy for me to say. A free pick on Sunday.
Yes, and I just have one, so you don't have to say picks. So that makes it all the better. And I will say, before I dive into this, is that, Ross, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, you and I are friends. And of course, friends also like to every now and again give the needle to each other. Okay, that's what friends do. Yes. And so I was this close to wanting to take Buffalo again for a free pick this week as the game, just to get your reaction, because I loved your reaction last week. You completely disagreed with me. I knew you did, and you were completely right. I blew that pick. That was horrible last week, but I wanted to bring it back in. But I thought, no, you know what? There's a point of no return, and I want to be invited back. So I'm going to let Buffalo.
That will never ever come into play, Doug, in terms of me.
I'm just teasing about that. So yeah, but I just wanted to bring that up and also admit that I was wrong. Okay. Yeah. The free pick, it was terrible last week. So we move ahead. Let's see if we can do a lot better this week. And I'm going to bring up a situation that I just talked about. Arizona is traveling to Jacksonville. And to me, this matchup has several interesting features. We'll start with the head coaches. Both of them came through the college ranks. Urban Meyer, okay, taking over a morbid Jacksonville franchise. He understood the pro game, okay, and he obviously learned it in his later time at Ohio State that you got to have a top level quarterback in order to succeed, especially at the NFL level. And he thinks he has one in Trevor Lawrence. I'm not going to say he doesn't. Okay. Lawrence, to me, looks like he's going to be a very good pro. Cliff Kingsbury, okay, came to Arizona. He had far more pieces to work with in terms of the franchise with Arizona than what Meyer certainly has. And Kyler Murray, he handpicked Kyler Murray as his quarterback because he likes to run a varied offense and, move things around quite a bit. Both coaches have, let's just say, justifiably gotten some criticism. However, one coach is 0-2 this year and the other coach is 2-0. Now, Jacksonville comes in, and they're the bottom 6 in yards per game so far, and also in yards per game allowed. Okay. Arizona, on the other hand, is second in the NFL in yards per game gained so far this season. So, Murray is working his magic. We've seen all those already, some pretty amazing throws from him. So when it comes down to this, we got the betting odds. There's some 7.5s out there in Arizona, but there's also some 7s now. So I'm of the opinion, it seems to be coming down. I think that there's going to be some value that you can find at -7 on Arizona, and we can eliminate the half point. And with the total at 52, Ross, I just don't see Jacksonville able to match points with Arizona in this one. And I'm going to take the Cardinals to win by 10 and possibly more.
So Doug Upstone is on the Arizona Cardinals. You might have a 7.5 out there. You might be able to find a 7. Here's what I would say, and I think Doug would agree with me on this one. And if you don't, Doug, that's okay. Yeah. I'll give you a chance to reply here. Anytime you get on a key number, 3, 6, 7, 10, 13, and 14 in college football, you should buy off the hook. Okay. So if it's 7.5, buy it down to 7. Yes, it does cost a little more juice to buy off a key number. But at the end of the day, the juice only counts when you lose. Secondly, if you do the math, if you gain a push by buying off the 0.5 point, just 1 out of every 10 plays that you make in that regard, you are going to come out on top. So anyway, Doug, any response to that?
Yeah, just in general. I mean, Ross, I agree with you, obviously, in terms of the theory of it. I'm also, though, some people don't like to buy points. I'm not going to tell anybody or buy off of points or whatever. I'm not going to tell anybody, what the best strategy, what you think is. Yes, there's what you just said. There's some very good, let's just say money management characteristics to that. I also understand the other side of it is, what, in this case, a tie is always better than a loss. Okay, along that same line. So yeah, but I think each individual person has to determine what they want to do, because we can talk to her blue in the face and say, well, this is how you should do it. This is why you should do it. Okay. And people are still going to do what they want to do.
Yeah. So, well, the thing is, here's the way I look at it too, Doug. And I agree with what your point is well taken. If they're paying us, you're going to do, I'm going to advise you what to do. You're paying me to advise you. Okay. So I can live with a push. I can't live with losing by a 0.5 point on a key number. So that's just me. Again, I think what Doug is referring to is all of you watching out there that hinge their wagon to all these free picks that you're seeing on the internet. But when you're a paid client of mine, I could only speak for myself in that regard. I am going to be emphatic that that's what you do on these key numbers. And I have no empathy if you don't. So that's just me. Anyway, I have a free pick, Doug, and it comes in the Atlanta and the Giants game. Hold your nose, buddy, because it's a terrible game. But you know what? It's the lesser of two evils when you come to a choice in this game. Look, Atlanta been terrible. First 2 games, 0-2, and been outscored 80-31. Their defense stinks. Their offensive line is terrible. They're undisciplined, and I'm not a big fan of Arthur Brown as a head coach. Okay. He's one of those guys, I think, when it's all said and done, Doug, is going to be one of those examples of a guy who was a very good offensive coordinator and not a very good head coach. And that's my take. I know it's early. It's a small sample size, but that's my gut feeling at this point. Since 2018, Atlanta, their first 4 games of the season, they've gone 2-12 straight up and 3-11 against the spread. Regardless of who the head coach has been, they haven't started very well. Atlanta also, as in non-division games, I should say, when the point spread is between +3 and -3 since 2018, 2-13 straight up in ATS and 0-8 straight up in ATS in their last 8. What does that tell me? That tells me that when they have what the books deem to be a very winnable game, they fall flat on their face. Now, the New York Giants aren't nothing to write home about, okay? But they are coming off an encouraging performance against the Washington Redskins, against a formidable Washington defense. It's arguably underachieved in their first 2 games, but we know. Look at their defensive line. They got 4 first-round draft choice on the defensive line. And if you look at their defensive statistics from a year ago, one of the best in the NFL, and that personnel hasn't changed. If it has, it's very little. Okay, so my point being is the Giants rang up 391 yards of offense. I thought that Daniel Jones might have played his best game as a pro last week, even though they lost. And I like the Giants here. I do. I mean, I'm going to lay the 3 points against what I consider to be a pathetic Atlanta team that I'll be shocked this year. I'll be absolutely shocked if they win 3 games. So again, I'm going to take the New York Giants -3 over Atlanta. And Doug Upstone, you're going to do what?
I am going to take the Arizona Cardinals, hopefully, or actually it's out there, -7 against Jacksonville.
And Doug, what do you got going on this week? How'd you do last week? And where could they find you at Doc Sports?
Absolutely, Ross. That's exactly where I'm at. Doug Upstone at docsports.com. And the NFL has been very kind to me so far. I'm on a 6-0 start of the season. So that has been excellent. Lots of people are happy with that, needless to say. And so we're going to try and keep the momentum going. Am I going to go 3-0 or 4-0 this weekend? I'm not going to say yes, and I'm not going to say no, Ross, because don't know. So see if we can continue. Sometimes you get in the groove and you just kind of roll along and you let it go. And so that's what I'm going to try and do. I got a 6-unit play, which is my top play in the NFL plus in college football, or college and pro the last 2 weeks, 11-3. So off to a very good start in football, just in general. And I have a 7-unit play in college football. And along with that, there's been 4 weeks so far in the college football season. And my best bet in each of those, 4-0, Ross.
Beautiful.
Looking for more. How
I
about
love
yourself?
it. Love it, buddy. I love it. I was laughing, not because I was laughing at your record, which is absolutely phenomenal. I was waiting for one of your, I can't explain it. I won every game, but I can't explain it. To one of those. I love when you do that, because that's about as humble as you could possibly be, which Doug is. Look, Doug's one of the best handicappers in the country, and that's coming from me. And nobody has more confidence than I have. A lot of guys have as much confidence, but I would venture to say that not many, if any, have more. And when I make this statement, I'm very confident, being the key word, that I'm being truthful with you. Doug is, I think, the most underrated handicapper in the country. And I think you folks will be well advised to invest a little money in them at docsports.com. Those numbers don't lie, folks. Remember, numbers don't lie and liars don't figure. Anyway, you could find me at rbwins.com. Like Doug, I've been perfect with my college football 10-star top plays. He calls them his best bets. I call them my 10-star top plays. They mean the same. I did not give out one in the early week where there was just 4 games, but the last 3 weeks I have. 3-0, perfect 3-0. Last week I had the North Carolina Tar Heels minus the 7.5, and they crushed Virginia 59-39. And also had UTSA in week 1, and I had App State in week 2 against Miami of Florida. So off to a great start there. College football also overall 9-5 with my last 14, and dating back to last season, 20-12 with my last 32. That's good for 63%. NFL, since the preseason, 13-7 with my last 20 in the NFL. And if you've been following me over the years, you know my September record in the NFL has been absolutely phenomenal. This year, no different. 104-55 in the NFL in the month of September since 2010. So, Doug, I'd like to wish you a lot of luck this coming weekend. Keep the winning going, buddy. I want to hear you next week say I'm 9-0, and I just can't explain it. But until the next time, for Doug Upstone, I'm Ross Benjamin. Take care and God bless, folks.